For convention delegates. Do I have a motion to close nominations for convention delegates? Anne Marie, is there a second? Lina, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. And again, with a round of applause, let us signal our unanimous vote for these delegates. Okay. Bill, may I have my binder? So, friends, this is my fifth annual meeting as your rector. And as I look back at 2021, we've put a little slideshow together of some highlights of the past year. It's hard to know how to adequately sum it up. But as I noted in my written report, there were certainly two distinct segments of this past year, as we were nearly all virtual, carrying forward with what our organist and choir master dubbed Electric Church for the first 6 months of the year until we were finally able to open our doors again for regular in-person worship on the 4th of July. And it has been a great challenge for every church, for every diocese, to navigate how to carry forward our work during a global pandemic, to know how to do that as safely as possible. And so I want to say a big thank you to our parish medical team, Dr. Scott Curry and Robert Ball, who respond to every question, every query, who are available to give their expert opinion on how we can make difficult decisions pertaining to the life of the church and to keep people safe. Thank you very much, Scott and Robert. The creativity, ingenuity, hard work, and flexibility required to keep our church moving during such an upending season leads me to start off by saying a big thank you to our hardworking and talented staff, some of the best in the diocese, in my estimation. Thank you to Parish Administrator Amanda Rucker, our organist and choir master Wayne Helmley, Associate Rector Laura Rezak, Assistant Priest Courtney Davis-Shoemaker, Deacon Greg Smith, and our verger Mike Shewan. Thank you very much for all that you do for this place. I also want to thank Andrea McKellar, who served as our digital ministry coordinator from August of 2020 until August of this past year, who did all of the wonderful pre-recorded worship that we were able to do before we could meet in person. Offerings that have gained us members who tuned in online and joined our parish that way. Just a few weeks ago, we had the Diocesan Bishop of the Diocese of Maine here to worship with us, and he was speaking to Wayne and Joey and I up in the choir loft and says that he tuned in to St. Stephen's worship early on. He was looking around the church, and that our worship services, those pre-recorded services of worship, were better than anything that he was doing in his diocese. And I see Andrea right there. Andrea, would you please stand? Thank you, Andrea. I'd also like to thank publicly Allison Kalitsky, our special events coordinator, who moved away in July, and parishioner Vicki Anthos, who has stepped up as our interim special events coordinator. I'm happy to welcome back our nursery workers, Betty DePriest and Lynn Mayfield. And I'm also happy to welcome back Anne-Marie Doyen, who came back this year and has been a great help to Mike Shewan and the clergy in a variety of tasks. And I also want to introduce two new figures who I believe are here today. One is Dennis Schumann up there in our choir. Dennis, could you please stand? Some won't be able to see you. Dennis has been our 9 a.m. musician since the 4th of July. helping us to make a joyful noise at that wonderful growing service that I will say more about in just a few moments. I also want to say a big thank you to Griffin Hall, who is up there in the cockpit. Griffin is now our lead live streamer. But all of these live streaming efforts that admittedly are still a work in progress would not have been possible without the steady, consistent effort of parishioner Scott Curry and Vestry member Walker Smith. Thank you very much for all your effort. And I also want to say a very big thank you to our 2021 Vestry members for all their hard work and faithfulness over this past year, and especially to our officers, Chris Frisby, Senior Warden, Lina, Nandy, and Greg Adams, Junior Warden, Frank Lee, Financial Officer, and Bill Geeson, Clerk. And thanks to Charlie McClendon for another year as our non-Vestry treasurer. Thank you so much, 2021 Vestry. I will have a little more to say about our outgoing members, Chris Frisby, Greg Adams, and Maggie Griffin, in just a few minutes. 2021, despite the challenges and uncertainty that we faced, was very productive on several fronts. We created a 9 a.m. service. That was certainly one of the goals that we had set for ourselves when we made the decision early in the pandemic, I might add, in 2020, to call a full-time associate rector. And boy, how fortunate were we that we were able to find somebody like Laura. Under Laura's tutelage, that 9 a.m. service has gotten started and is now, filling up with families, with small children, and is a wonderful addition to our ministry to that demographic in our parish. Also this year, we did make the transition, as I noted already, from pre-recorded worship that Andrea masterfully spearheaded to the live streaming that we are doing today. We began with a partnership with Mount Zion AME Church on Glebe Street, a historically black church that we now call the Micah Project, having regular Bible study, dwelling on the Word together, and then meeting regularly during the week to think about how we can take action inspired by the Scriptures in our community. And we have decided that the Micah Project will largely try to focus itself on work on the east side of our city, an area that St. Stephen's is linked to through our history. But I will also note that through the Micah Project, we are beginning to plan for a racial justice pilgrimage through the summer that will send a group through some of the civil rights spots in the southeast. And Laura and Reverend Linda Chisholm Haynes from Mount Zion are beginning to work on the planning for that summer experience that will be offered for adults and for youth. There'll be two separate experiences this coming summer. We also happily completed much-needed renovations on our Christian education classrooms, capped off with an All Saints Day dedication of that building to beloved parishioner Iris Carson. Thank you to our vestry for their investment, for our growth task force chaired by Robert Barber that helped in the planning of this. Thank you to parishioner Dick Moss and his construction team. Thank you to Mike Schuin for all of his professional expertise. Thank you to Laura Rizak and Amanda Rucker for all that they did behind the scenes as well. If you've not had an opportunity to go over and see those spaces, we'll be showing some pictures of those spaces soon, but I encourage you to do so because they really now are not just modernized, but far more functional spaces for our young people, but also that upstairs space is a space that can also be used during the week for many other purposes as well. We've had a Micah Project luncheon inviting clergy from the east side over to our campus already in that space as well. We've also during this time added 30 to 40 new members, many of whom made first contact with our parish through our online presence, and thanks to our newcomer ministry coordinators, Susan Rorwick and Silka Saida for all the work that they continue to do. Some highlights of the past year for me was the online Epiphany Bake-Off that we did online early in the year that I got roped into, that was masterfully edited by Andrea McKellar and has been picked up now by Episcopal News Service. It's become a thing across the church as people have encouraged other congregations to think about their own bake-off. It was a wonderful, it's now been viewed something like 1,100 times on our YouTube channel. Another highlight for the year was, of course, coming back into this space for in-person worship for the first time after 16 long months, to see all of your beautiful faces, to hear Wayne playing on the organ, and to hear our awesome choir up there, not only on a recording, but in the flesh. That was a wonderful highlight for me. Very, very emotional and moving time. And I also want to acknowledge, apart from our life together, that there also was a big happening in our diocese this year. I'm very thankful that this year we finally were able to elect a diocesan bishop that we have not had for a long, long time. And I'm so thankful to Parishioner Pat Patrick, who represented us on the Bishop Search Committee. I think they did a marvelous job. I think we ended up with a marvelous bishop. And Bishop Ruth's consecration at Grace Church Cathedral that was attended by several St. Stephen's members was also a memorable event for me this past year. As I begin to wrap up, grateful for all the ministries that make this place what it is, and really encouraging you to look all the way through the written report that highlights so many wonderful happenings. I want to say a big thank you to Betsy Rakoff, who stepped down this year as leader of our Sunshine Committee. I want to say a thank you to Colleen Fenrick and Colette Simone for all their efforts in leading our ministry to Sanders Clyde Elementary School. That is now transitioning to our ongoing commitment to work with the St. Julian Divine Community Center on the east side, very close by to Sanders Clyde. As we look to the year ahead, I'm very excited to have us celebrate our Bicentennial and thank Claire Monahan, who has chaired that committee, and Reverend Courtney for being the clergy liaison to that committee. And I look forward to their comments later on during this meeting. And I also do want to acknowledge now the dreaming work that we hope to do with all of you in the coming weeks and months about how we might further leverage our campus to better meet our needs as a growing congregation. And Herbert Drayton, who has been a part of that process, will be introducing that work shortly. Finally, I do want to highlight and say a big thank you to our outgoing Vestry members. When this Vestry class accepted the call to serve on the Vestry, none of us had ever heard anything about COVID-19. So this Vestry class, these Vestry members who are stepping off, just had to jump full on into the uncertainty and upending time that COVID has brought us. And as I look back, it is remarkable all the things that our congregation has been able to accomplish at a time when some churches have had to close their doors because of this pandemic. St. Stephen's has actually continued to grow. We've not just remained static. And that, in part, is because of our hardworking vestry and the leadership shown by our outgoing members. Chris Frisby. Chris Frisby is our outgoing senior warden. And Chris, could you come forward, please? Chris is stepping down after 2 years as our senior warden. And to serve on the vestry is a tremendous commitment by itself. But to agree to be the senior warden is exponentially more work. And Chris has just poured himself into the life of this congregation. I have had more phone calls, emails, text messages, Zoom meetings with Chris than I could possibly count. But Chris, I am so very grateful to you for saying yes to the call, not only to serve on Vestry, but to help to lead us at St. Stephen's as our senior warden. So thank you so very much, Chris. Now, Greg Adams. Greg Adams has been the junior warden for 3 years. Greg Adams has been our junior warden for the entire time that he has served on Vestry, not for the faint of heart. COVID-19 aside, because as I told Greg and Chris a couple of years ago, admittedly, in many respects, and I'm sorry, Lina, but in many respects, I would say that the junior warden role is almost harder than the senior warden role, because you are having to deal with aging buildings, with issues that arise on a campus, and are having to respond to all of those balls. Right? I mean, yeah. Whenever any of us on the campus have seen something, wrong, we've called Greg to respond to that for much of his time on the Vestry. And this time, I just want to acknowledge Greg has not just been an upending one for us in the church and the world, but I know also for you because of the loss of your beloved wife, Rose, who meant so much to us here at St. Stephen's. And so, Greg, from the bottom of our hearts, we are grateful for your service as junior warden. Is Maggie Griffin here? I have a feeling Maggie is probably watching online, which is totally fine, and I understand the reasons why. But Maggie Griffin steps down after having really devoted herself to the mission of this church. She has been our mission liaison for her time on the Vestry. She chaired a mission task force to explore how we might do missions better in the future, and her efforts led to the standing mission committee that Reverend Laura and Deacon Greg have been leading in recent months that will, in the coming months, give way to a new Vestry leader. But I am so very grateful to Maggie. Maggie and I met one another when I was in my mid-20s, when we were both at a orientation for missionaries being sent out around the world in the Episcopal Church, and I could have never imagined when I first met Maggie Griffin that years later the two of us would share in leadership of such a wonderful congregation. So Maggie, I assume that you are listening right now, and I want to say a very big thank you for your service as well. With that, with a grateful heart, I close my rector's report and will turn things over to our outgoing senior warden, Chris Frisby, for the senior warden's report. And I just want to remind everyone, as much as possible, please speak from the lectern for the sake of those listening in.
Well, good afternoon, St. Stephen's. It is a wonderful thing to see so many twinkling eyes over masks. And I'll extend the metaphor from this morning's sermon as I come to you as St. Stephen's titular head. Those of you who know me well may rather know me, be more familiar as heel. But I have submitted a report for this afternoon's annual meeting, and I'll commend it to you for a closer, full reading. But for now, just allow me to read from its opening. Friends, my report this year is my last as senior warden. It's been my honor to serve St. Stephen's as a vestry member and in this role the last few years. And when I took on the role of senior warden following the capable stewardship provided by John Burris, I was simultaneously optimistic and trepidatious. And as I prepare to step aside, my optimism remains, but the trepidation has given way to gratitude. And the remainder of the report goes further in expressing appreciation and thanksgiving for all of you here today. We certainly, everything we have done, we've done together. But it gives thanks, as it should, to the tireless work of our rector and the associate clergy and our staff, my fellow wardens, and the full vestry. And Adam has recapped some of the accomplishments of the recent past. I have reflected on the growing membership in our parish. It's grown significantly, and can be thankful for that. We've expanded the clergy here with the additions of Reverend Courtney Davis-Shoemaker and Reverend Laura Rizak. The overhaul to the new church website was overdue and is serving us well. We have undertaken renovations that support our youth and family ministry, and we now have the Iris Carson classrooms. We formed a security task force to look after our safety and well-being. And we've increased diversity and representation on the vestry. We have secured increasingly strong financial footing with robust oversight. And we are looking to the future, and we're well prepared for it. All the while, remaining a house of prayer for all people, and we're continuing to advance God's work in the world. So I'll end now, and I want to give a nod to one of my mentors for whom I taught a decade ago, the Reverend Dr. Stuart Dunnan, who's headmaster of St. James Episcopal School in Maryland. And annually, as commencement approached for our seniors, he would offer advice that was simple and most instructful, and that was that the best way to say goodbye is always to say thank you. So, thank you.
Now we will continue with the Junior Warden's report, which will be Greg Adams and Lina Nandy. Please come forward.
Well, you've already heard that I don't have good judgment. I have a lot of stories I could tell, but y'all don't want to hear all of them now. But I was honored deeply to be elected this year to be the junior warden. But we knew that there were concerns. We knew that I might not be able to do the job fully. I might not be able to do it for a full year, depending on the course of Rose's illness. And so the vestry elected, for the very first time, an assistant junior warden, and we luckily, brilliantly, got Lina Nandy to agree to serve that role. Because sadly, it wasn't very long before I had to ask Lina to step in full-time as our junior warden. She did immediately. and has done a fantastic job this year. Thank you, Lina, from the bottom of my heart. Rose and I appreciate it so much. Since Lina's been your junior warden throughout most of this year, this is her report. Lina.
Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm so grateful to Greg's mentorship and to his counsel and advice, and literally counsel, serving as sort of in-house counsel for St. Stephen's. So, yeah, sorry. So let me just say how grateful I am to Greg and how much counsel he's given me over the course of the year. Aside from that, let me also say how very grateful I am to the numerous parishioners who have helped out with the building and grounds, often even behind the scenes to me. I can't tell you the number of times that, I've found out after the fact that how much work someone has done, whether it's Rolf helping with the gardening or Joe with the pressure washing. So I'm so immensely grateful to all of the many volunteers who have helped along the way. So thank you for your continuing devotion to St. Stephen's appearance and upkeep. Just a couple of items I just want to highlight briefly. So as Adam mentioned, we dedicated the Carson classrooms, and I want to extend my deep gratitude to Dick Moss and to Mike Schuin for all the immense work that they've done. This work and the commitment will breathe new life into formation opportunities for the youth of St. Stephen's, but also has created new meeting spaces for the Micah Project, and can be used in any number of ways. So it's a really exciting time for St. Stephen's, and I'm just so excited to have been a small part of it. Like many renovation projects, for any of you who have undergone renovations, it's not without some unwelcome surprises. So one of them was that the roof supporting some of the HVAC condenser units collapsed under the foot literally went through the roof. So the roof had rotted through, and so that was a surprise cost. I will say to Dick Moss's credit, it actually came in under budget to what they had originally quoted us, which was amazing. So the roof has been replaced. We have new mini splits in the classroom, which are highly efficient, so that's very exciting. One of the other repairs that needed to take place over the course of the year, some of you may have noticed that there was some leaking going on in the windows, and so we contracted with Low Country Transformation Solutions. They repaired some of the wood rot that was taking place outside. So originally they'd caulked it, that wasn't sufficient. So we came back to take a look at the outside of the windows to make sure that they were in good shape. So those repairs were completed over the summer. So there's been lots of things along the way, but those are some of the big highlights, and I know that, lots of exciting things for 2022. So thank you very much.
Now I'd like to invite forward Claire Monahan and Courtney Davis-Shoemaker for the Bicentennial report.
Good morning. I am thrilled to kick off our 200th year with all of you here at St. Stephen's. It's incredible, and we are so excited, Courtney and I, to be planning everything that's coming up for us. So I wanted to show you all, we have these little bookmarks that Courtney has made that highlight several exciting events that we've put on our calendar for the church this year that I invite you all to save the date, put this on your refrigerator, and make a point to come to these events through the year. And I'll just start off by saying we have so much in planning still, so there will be many more details unfolding through the year on the website, in the Deacon, and in other social media communications, so please be on the lookout for those. But we were founded 200 years ago in 1822, and we will be planning several educational opportunities as we learn about our rich history and legacy and heritage, and we'll be looking at the Bicentennial from a past, a present, and a future for what it is here at St. Stephen's. But we're going to kick off our first event of the year after Easter on Sunday, May 15th for the Emma Watson Barbecue. That's going to be an incredible reunion, as it always is, and we're so excited to be celebrating all of these events in person. Sunday, June 5th, we are planning a Pentecost picnic, and I'm sure that's going to be also a beautiful kickoff for summer and the celebration of our church, as well as just being part of everything that's happening with Pentecost that day. Friday, September 30th is going to be a weekend-long shindig, if you will. But this one in particular is our big party that we are going to be planning with everyone. And we have reserved the Camden Room, which is up Meeting Street next to the bus shed, if you're familiar with that location. And that party is well underway, with more details coming. And then our finale, if you will, of the events on this agenda is Sunday, October 23rd, where we are having a Bicentennial Evensong event here in our church. And that is going to be an incredible, beautiful performance. Wayne is going to be commissioning an anthem for the St. Stephen's Bicentennial. So we will have signature music as well as other dedications happening that day. So along with all of these events, I would love for everyone in our church to think about what St. Stephen's means to you. I'm beginning to collect photographs, videos, letters, quotes, any sort of narrative that you all have to share about your story here at St. Stephen's. And my hope is to have all of these visually displayed at our September 30th event, but also just to add to our history that we have here and now and the people that make our parish the reason we all gather together every Sunday. So please reach out to me via email, reach out to Courtney, call me, any way that we can organize these interviews. I would love for you to start thinking about these moments. Photographs. Did you get married here? Is there baptisms that we don't have pictures of? I want to gather as much of that as possible, because this is a celebration that we don't get to turn 200 very often. So I am very excited for all that we have in store. And Courtney, thank you so much for being part of this with me and planning all of this. It's going to be a big year, and we're thrilled for all that we have ahead. And yes, Courtney, come on in.
And in addition to us, there is a committee that also Thelma and Edna are a part of, as well as Joey and Diane Agapore, and Cindy Held, and Walker Smith. So we are grateful for that entire committee. But because of the number of events that we are going to be having over the year, if there are other volunteers who would like to be involved, please know there are ample opportunities. So please be in touch with us. We would love as many people to be involved in the planning as possible. But again, these are just kind of some highlighted events, but there will be educational opportunities throughout the year to make sure that we are all continuing to learn about the important history that this parish has played in our city, and as we continue to look forward to the future. So thank you, and thank you, Claire.
Now I'd like to invite Herbert Drayton forward to talk about our listening process.
Good morning, family. Good morning. And I was just telling Sally that I was having a conversation with a colleague, and he was in Wisconsin, and he was telling me that the weather there was 17 degrees. I said, on this day, the only thing 17 years old that I want to be dealing with is bourbon. So that's what I did for the afternoon. Adam, thank you, and thanks to all of you for attending the annual meeting this year. There are a lot of exciting things going on, a lot of exciting things that have happened over the past year. In my nearly 6 decades of being a member of St. Stephen's, there's been, this consistent cadence of challenges that the church has had to face during that time. And you guys know that with challenges, they're never comfortable or convenient, and they never come with return addresses. So as a congregation and the vestry, you have no choice but to lean into those challenges as they appear at your doorstep. Our congregation back in 2019 decided that they would lean into the challenges that were at our doorstep. And what they decided to do was to commission 4 ad hoc committees to look into those challenges. They created a children, youth, and young families ad hoc committee, and you've heard the great work that Laura, her team, and others have done with the Iris Carson Center and our youth education. There was a missions ad hoc committee, there was a communications ad hoc committee, and a growth committee. Now, in partnership with the Children, Youth, and Young Families ad hoc committee, the growth committee partnered with them to, what came to life over there is the Iris Carson Center. So we did that in partnership together. But also, as with the growth committee, we realized that there was a broader body of work that we needed to do to address the growth needs of our campus. And the vestry has decided to lean into the challenges of growth, and that's what's going to get us where we are now. That's what's brought us here to where we are now, taking a look at the campus. There's a lot of work that we need to do with the campus. Clearly, this meeting is indicative of what we're experiencing here at St. Stephen's. We're growing. And as I said, we can't send people back to where they came from. We want them to stay here. And the first part of looking at what we do and to address our growth needs as it relates to the campus is we have to make sure that what the vestry is thinking is in alignment with what you are thinking as well. Your voice, your vision, we have to capture that to ensure that what the architects are telling us, what the fabulous people that we have in this congregation are telling us about this campus and the potential for this campus, we need to make sure that it's in alignment with you. And to do that, there's this phase called the listening phase, where we lean in and we listen to you. And we make sure that we can draw a straight line from what you're thinking, what you believe is consistent with, I'd say, the leadership team is thinking. And in passing year philanthropy, we typically look at 5 forms of capital that everyone can bring to bear when they're engaging challenges. And the acronym to make things simple is SMIRF, S-M-I-R-F. Someone told me that's not how you spell SMIRF, but that's S-M-I-R-F, right? The S is for social capital, all right? Who you know, that's the people in this church. Moral capital, what we stand for as a congregation. Our intellectual capital, what we know and what we know can add value to this situation in this listening phase that we're in. Our reputational capital. That's St. Stephen's as a whole, and that's individually each one of you here. And finally, our financial capital. And folks, keep in mind, that's not just writing a check. Every time that you lean into what we're about to do here in this church has a value that can be assigned to it, okay? Now, I'm not suggesting that, when Trey passes around, you put a note in there, so I gave 20 hours this week. That's my commitment to the church. Continue to lean in. There's an online survey want you to go in, take a look at it. The Vestry has hired, is it Vandersall? Vandersall Collective to help guide us through this process. And having been involved in at least a half dozen campaigns in this community over the past dozen years or so, you have to have informed leadership, leadership that's also sits on the outside to look in and look at what we're doing, to give us some guidance to make sure we're pulling in the right information, we're collecting the right data points, and we're communicating the right information back to you so that you could stay involved, not just at the beginning, but throughout this process. So my plea to you is that you don't look at this process as something that's being done in a vacuum, because we need you to lean in, we need you to listen to what we're saying, and we're also going to listen to what you're saying. Adam's going to answer, provide some additional information and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Herbert. Yes, as Herbert noted, we have engaged a consulting firm that works with Episcopal churches across the country called Vandersall Collective. And Vandersall has created a landing page, a website that we will be putting out to all of you in the coming days. And on that website is an online survey that lists our listening questions. That is one way that you can give us your feedback in this process if you would prefer to do it that way. But we also are providing several opportunities for facilitated conversation for those who would like to respond to the questions that way. The dates, again, will be pushed out in the coming days, but we've been looking at January 31st, February 6th, and February 10th. There'll be a variety of opportunities to have some conversation online, on Zoom. We are hoping to try to figure out a way to do one safely in person, although given where we are with the Omicron variant, our bishop is certainly encouraging that as many meetings as can happen online do happen online. So we will finalize those dates and get them to you with this landing page this week. And you will have a bounded time to respond, but as Herbert said, I want to reiterate that this is a challenge for the entire community, and we want all of you to lean in and to give us your input and your feedback so that we can move forward together. Are there any questions on that process? Charles. So that is a good question, and I can't give you the exact number, but what I can tell you this is what I think is helpful to keep in mind is that since that office building, it was originally intended actually to be a parish hall, I believe, Herbert, if that's correct. Since that building was built, the number of communicants at this church have effectively quadrupled in size. And yet we're still operating on the same general campus. But communicant number is probably 450-ish, somewhere in that range right now. I don't know exactly what it was in 1987, 88, but I think it's been a big jump in numbers. So. What I just also want to reflect back to you, to Charles's question, is that while I have been your rector, I feel a lot of the ministries of our church on this campus doing this. People are. We've gotten busy enough in recent years that people are sort of, bumping into one another, trying to work around our space constraints here. And as I noted in the video message that I sent to the parish, Stevens Hall, that prior to the pandemic was the place that we had fellowship time in the past. now houses my office in part because we called Laura in 2020 and we didn't have enough office space to provide Laura. So if we were to clear out Stevens Hall and go back in there right now, it would even be a tighter space than we have before. And so as the leadership of the church has been dreaming about this, we have thought about a more free-flowing, centralized space as a possibility that we would love your input on as we move forward in the process. So, any other questions? Okay. Well, again, stay tuned for the information that we'll be putting out in the coming days. And now I will turn it over to Frank Lee for our finance report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I will keep this brief because I hear tummies growling all over this place. It's almost 1:30, and so I don't want you to throw eggs and cans at me. What I want to say is, just in general, I gave you a report at the end of this packet that is very detailed. There's an overall summary of my opinion of how well we did in 2021. We have a larger and more active finance committee than we have ever had before. When you sit down to work out a budget for an organization like this, it requires a lot of insight and a lot of luck. We try to predict what we're going to need and what we're going to spend with that need. And all of that, I hope, is reflected in this report for you. So I'm going to just briefly say, if you open to where the numbers are, page 1 shows our statement of financial position. That has increased over the last 12 months. And we haven't had an audit, but we haven't had an appraisal of all of our property. So the property and equipment probably is a very low number, not very, but it's lower than, I don't know when the last time an appraisal was done. But you all know what the property values have done around you, around this building. So I anticipate that will be a lot greater. One of the things that the church did, which has been wonderful, they hired a group of people called Sage Accounting. And I have worked with them, and they have worked with me, and we have all worked with Amanda. We have worked together to try to define line by line exactly what the church gets and exactly how it spends it, line by line. And as you will notice, you have on page 2 an actual versus budget. And that may be more information than you wanted, and you probably can leave off the last 2 columns, but you can see that we're doing really, really well. As I said, if you look at the actual versus budget, you will see that not always are our numbers as accurate as we want them to be. So we want to continue to refine that process so that we can really more accurately predict what our needs are going to be. That's just an overall budget, and so we were although compared to the budget, we would have been in the hole, but we actually are not for 2021. After that, you will see a statement of designated funds. We have some designated funds here. That means those funds people give for a specific purpose. We also have some self-sustaining funds, which means that a lot of times that there's actually no cash kept in those accounts. As people come forward, they pay for flowers, they pay for kneelers, those kind of missionary services that happen for the church. The next page is on restricted funds, and we have a memorial garden out here where people buy plots, and that money is deposited too until it is completely used as needed. So you will see a statement of activities on the restricted funds. Nothing can be spent out of that restricted budget except what it is specified for. Okay? Then after that, that's when I gave you an in-depth, detailed summary of activities. What you're holding is what I see day by day as I look at this work, and week by week, and it is what I report to the vestry on every month. This is called the Finance Committee Dashboard. It is a detailed and very involved. And actually, when I look at this report online, I can click on certain numbers and get deeper and deeper and deeper into where the funds come from and what they're intended to be used for. But I will tell you that what Adam said today in the sermon is that I am here and because you are here. And it takes all of us working together. And I am very impressed and grateful that those of you who are here and those of you who are listening online feel that St. Stephen's community deserves your financial support. And because of it, it has certainly made my job a lot easier. I will also tell you that we have envisioned and are going to have an internship at St. Stephen's that will help us to look at finances. This is a graduate student from the College of Charleston who, thanks to Mason Reeves, will be on board pretty soon. I don't know if you all understand what Amanda does every day, but it's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. And how she juggles all of those parts is really, really a credit to her and her loyalty to us and to you. And so this person will be helpful for the Finance Committee and also for and Amanda and paying bills and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited for her about that. I'm excited for you about that. And hopefully this will be an ongoing process where we get an intern every semester from the college for them to learn about financing and how a nonprofit operates, and also for them to sort of do hands-on. Another thing that you're going to be hearing about in the future is something called planned giving. You probably all know what that is. We have never had a planned giving program here, but as we move forward, Greg Garvin, who did that as a living his entire career, is going to help us define what that looks like, and you will be hearing more and more about that as time goes by. What else? I think that's it. If you have questions, my name is Frank Lee. I am listed in the directory, both my phone number and my email address. So I'm happy to sit down with you and go over with you at any time, because I do not feel like this belongs to me. It belongs to you, and you should have access to it. Okay? Say again? No. No, but that would be nice. That would be nice.
All right, friends, we are almost to the end of this meeting. I would like to invite the 2022 Vestry, so that's the returning members and then the newly elected members, if you would all come forward and stand facing the congregation to be commissioned. Yeah, no, you can do it on the floor, yeah. Just. I will just note before this commissioning that this 2022 vestry will have a brief meeting following church today to elect its officers, and we will pass out to all of you that information after we have it. Let us pray. Eternal God, the foundation of all wisdom and the source of all courage, enlighten with your grace the wardens and vestry of this congregation, and so rule their minds and guide their counsels, that in all things they may seek your glory and promote the mission of your church, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Let's give them a big round of applause. All right, so again, 2022 vestry, please stay behind after we adjourn for a very brief meeting. And with that, friends, do I have a motion to adjourn? Robert, seconded by Frank. And to signal your unanimous consent of that, let us all stand and say the Lord's Prayer together. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.